Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sands of Time YouTube channel. My name is Susan Capurso. I'm an End of Life Doula and Legacy Specialist. And I'm here today with my partner in crime, Lisa Strahs. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Susan. How you doing today?
Very good. Welcome. Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So this is our end of life journey and beyond. And I am a bereavement specialist. We discuss every week topics that we believe are helpful and that other people don't bring up, but probably are concerning to them. And I thought that this week we would talk about grief. I want to share this weekend and what I did, and it really we can jump into the topic and discuss this further.
And I'm so excited because I heard about 2 minutes of it, when we talked briefly, Lisa, but I was away this weekend, so I wasn't able to attend. I would have loved to attend, so I can't wait to hear all about it.
So there are a few groups, support groups, which we've talked about before. And this is the Belmore Widowers group. We're here on Long Island. And it's a group that's been going on for some time. I can honestly say that coordinating this must be a lot, trying to get people to come. And of course, nowadays, with everything, it's even more difficult. But this group has been around a while and they haven't met in a while. And so they were really looking forward to Saturday. My partner and I, every single year since we've basically been together, host this Widowers group. And it is our social backyard barbecue party. And it's a really nice, relaxing afternoon. We tell people, bring beach chairs if you want. Our beach is right down the road. We have our pool open. We have, some nice food, very casual. And to sit around with people who really understand and who have all been through the same thing is very cathartic. Now, I know that not everybody shares that, but I know from my own experience that I like being around people who absolutely understand and that I can empathize with as well. I don't feel that it drags me down. I feel strongly that people need to it's almost like mentoring. I feel like I've been there, I've done that, and I understand. So when people come, we welcome them and introduce them. We make them wear their name tags so that they all, know each other. And then they usually say, oh, I'm new to this, or I'm a newbie, or, I've been here a while. And then, of course, the first question everybody asks, so how long ago did your spouse die? And we have the people, who it's less than a year. We have the people it's 2 years already. We have the people it's 5 years, 10 years. And, the natural inclination is, oh, soon, I'm so sorry, because when they hear it's only been a couple months, you feel, more strongly or more empathetic to someone in that position. And that then brought me to a table of women of all different perspectives, people whose spouses died many years ago. I mean, I'm 12 years out, and people who, are really new. And this is a big deal. To go out to a social by themselves is a really big deal. So we spoke about grief a little. And what was really interesting was how people look at grief. So during last week, I had met with some girlfriends who were happily married many, many years, but the subject came up and one sent me a picture and it was how grief really looks. And I thought, wow, this is really symbolic. And I think this really captures. And then that same week, somebody posted on social media the same picture. And I said, this is absolutely a message. This is telling me something. And I always thought of this. However, I didn't know how to visualize it. I didn't know how to show it. So I'm going to show it and I'm going to explain it. And we're going to talk about it. And I'm hoping that this topic really helps people who are grieving. I don't care how long it's been. It doesn't really matter. It matters really what this looks like in your life. Okay. So I'm going to share this with everybody. Okay, so we are looking at how grief looks. I want you to look at the top. The top is that people tend to believe that grief shrinks over time. So the first bottle on the left is this big ball of grief, which we all, feel overwhelmed and what are we going to do with our lives and what's going to happen to us, okay? And then the next jar symbolizes that it's getting smaller, that with time, it gets smaller. And then the last one on the right, you have your jar and it's just a small part of your life. Okay, not true, not true. The bottom is so amazing, and that's why I wanted to do this today. So on the bottom, you see that grief is a certain size, and the jar gets bigger, but grief stays the same. So what really happens is that we grow around our grief. What does that mean? It means that your life seems to envelop this grief and your jar is pretty small. But what happens over time is that your life grows and grief is still there. Grief never disappears, but your life gets bigger. Your life changes. Your life grows in many different ways. And that's why I love the whole moving on concept, because I'm still grieving. And I tell people that I still have grief over losing my husband, but my life has changed and grown. And so it doesn't occupy my whole life. It just occupies some of my life. I love this. This really just, I think this says exactly the way life truly is and the way grief is for all
Well,
of us.
I think it resonates, Lisa, with you so much because it does make you see that there are different perspectives, that there are different perspectives to view the pain that we've gone through, because that pain really doesn't go away. It doesn't shrink to be a marble size. It's 7 years for me. And yet one thing can happen over this past week. And right away, I'm hearing everything that my husband talked about and told me, and don't do it that way. And make sure you look at the dimensions when you order something, because it will come the completely different size. And you continue to think of all these conversations and thoughts, and it really doesn't go away. And, even hearing a song, that can be so overwhelming that I can break down and cry. How do you do that after 7 years? How do you get hysterical and say what's happening here? It just doesn't go away. So I love that you brought this today, because it's showing a different perspective, I think.
Agreed. And I do hope that people really envelop this. And let's talk about that. There is nothing wrong with crying. I think that people think, oh boy, this is it. If I start crying, I'll never recover. What will happen to me? I watch the same movie, and I think I brought this up on one of the other videos. I watch the same movie every year. Okay, every year. And I watch one for my father. I watch a different one for my husband. And there's different movies that symbolize different things. And every year at the same point, I always cry. And it's okay. It's okay. Because it just shows that I have feelings and that I still have feelings. And there's nothing wrong with having feelings.
And
Somebody said to me, somebody who lost her husband last year, she said to me, why am I always crying? And I said to her, the measure of the tears represents the love that you had. And it took her a while to think about that, but it's fine. It's fine. Everybody's all concerned. Oh boy, they're crying. What's going to happen? It's okay to cry. That's all part of it. But what's not okay is if you can't wake up in the morning, or if you're completely unable to live, or, and there's stages, obviously, but the grief idea, if we all accept that grief is still a part of us, that our loved ones will always be a part of us, and it's how we now move on and what we do with our lives after. That's the important thing, and so what's wrong with remembering, on a trip? When I went to Alaska, we were supposed to go to Alaska for our 30th wedding anniversary, and we didn't go because my husband was too sick to go. So I'm in Alaska and I'm thinking he would have loved to see this. He would have loved to be in the helicopter and the seaplane. And I took a few minutes. There was a really beautiful campfire around a mountain. And I said, this is my time, and I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to remember what it would have been like to have him here with me. And I was okay. I took those minutes. I needed those minutes. And then I went on, enjoying the trip.
And that's what we need to do. And that's a beautiful thing. And one thing I want to mention about your group that I didn't go to this weekend. And I know I've mentioned this again in another video as well, but I want to just explain my feeling on getting together and being with like-minded people. And I knew it was the right thing to do to get some kind of grounding and to get some kind of support. So I found a local group through a hospital, and they had it in their facility on the outside or whatever. But I got there and there were 10 people, and there was a lot of crying, and everybody had lost their spouses recently within the last 6 months, 3 to 6 months as well. And so much crying and talking about what happened in the emergency room and details. And it was upsetting to me because I didn't want to hear more of that. I'm just being honest with my feelings at that moment.
Sure.
I didn't want to hear this, but yet I'm smart enough to know, read till the end of the book. So I said, I'm going to go a few more times and not stop, because maybe this is my first session. So I go 2 more times, and it was the same thing. And it was so heavy on my heart that I didn't want to put myself through that anymore. Yep. This particular group was not a particularly good one for me. And that may happen to you. There are many other groups out there. Now, one thing that I regret that many people have told me over the last 7 years was to find a group that you like, to find a group where people have had loss over 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, just like the one you're talking about now. And they've invited me to a couple, and yet I haven't gone yet. But I got to tell you, 7 years now, and I think that I do want to go.
So let's explain the difference in groups, okay?
Yeah.
I want to focus on grief, but the groups are really important, okay? In the beginning, like when I lost my father, I went to a heal group, help ease a loss. And that was a limited amount of time to just go through bereavement. And all of us, I was the youngest person in the group. I'd lost a parent. Most people lost spouses. Some people lost children, or other relatives. And she helped us work through 8 weeks of a process of grieving and bereavement. Okay. The next group I went to after I lost my husband was at a hospital just like yours. And again, 8 weeks. They wouldn't let me come in until 3 months. You had to be at least 3 months past.
That's what I think the one I was in.
Yeah, that didn't help me a lot because I really wanted something sooner, but that's their philosophy. I guess they feel that you can't handle it. But anyway, and there were a lot of people crying, and a lot of people, all the stories were really upsetting and all, but I stayed because I felt that I could at least, empathize and talk to other people, etc. And I got a few friends from that. But this group, okay, is really an activities group. The only thing in common with everyone there is that they're all widow or widowers. So when they go out to dinner or they go to to a concert, you're with people who understand that being single is different for them now. That's really not the way they used to be. And listen, if they meet somebody, great, but they also want to feel comfortable being out again. So the group's essence was really not just to sit around and talk about things. This group's essence is really, let's get back out and live again.
And I think there are many groups like that, but you have to research and look for them in your area.
You do.
Because that's big for me. I had a single friend who moved away. I had one single friend out of all my married friends. Yeah. So now what do? I stay home on the weekends.
Yeah, exactly.
So being in a like-minded group like that, I think would kind of feel good.
Correct. I went to a group that was an activity group, just fun activities, and we're all single. So there were divorced people in there, and there were just single people in there, and of course widows. And I met my dear friend on a whitewater rafting trip that we went on in this group. We went to a dude ranch. I mean, just to be out and doing things. So the jar gets bigger because your life now has more in it.
But you
And
need the
that's,
courage. You also need the courage, and you have to find the bravery, I think, within yourself to be able to take that first step,
yes, yes,
right?
yes. And yes. And it does feel uncomfortable. I mean, the first time I went to speed dating, it was
Oh,
horrible, horrible. And I
well,
tried it because people said, oh, try it, but I couldn't stand it, you know? It's just like dating. I mean, being on, sites and stuff, all really difficult. But the thing is, there are a few things to decide. And for me, 2 years was like a magic number. 2 years, I felt like I could date again. 1 year, I felt I could start going out and seeing people, not dating, but at least being around people. So again, and only 3 months after my husband died, I decided to do a book. That's huge. I'd never written a book before. And for me, that was very therapeutic. So I think that everybody finds how to now make their life bigger and
you
what they
do,
can put into it.
you do, and I think, like you mentioned the book, right? So that's a hobby of some sorts. So if you change your perspective a little bit and think hobbies, right? And this is why I say that I think a group might be good for me, because I've come across different people with hobbies and different, not just hobbies. I mean, when my sister passed, I had to wait a period of time, and I donated her organs to live on New York, and just that experience, and they allow you to get together to talk about that, and you share a common experience. So it doesn't have to be a disease, it doesn't have to be a death. Think about when you join a group to paint, or a hiking group, or one of those groups, right? Why are you doing that? You're doing that, or a reading book club, okay? There's so many things, but
Yeah.
you're doing it because at that moment you're like-minded people, and you
Right.
all want to be a part of a book club and to have that book discussion and talk about that book, or you all want to try new hiking trails and new parks around, where you live that you've never been to before. And that's exactly this type of thing, where when you are around like-minded people, wow, how good does it feel to sit across the table and talk to somebody, and they've been through what you've been through.
Correct. And by the way, meetups. You go on meetup.com. There are thousands of meetup groups. This actually started from a meetup group. So you can find, again, all the things that you enjoy. And again, you have to look, okay, what do I like? What do I enjoy? And it's a real reevaluation of who you are as an individual, not as a spouse anymore, not as a child anymore, not as a, whatever it is.
And don't be frightened to think that it's about meeting somebody, because it's really not. It's really not. Going to these groups is not about meeting somebody. It's that you both suffered that pain,
right?
And you understand, and you can understand, and it feels good to be around like-minded people sometimes.
That's right. That's right. So really, this discussion about grief should hopefully educate people that it's okay. It's not going to disappear. It's part of you. It will always be part of you. But what happens is the rest of your life starts getting bigger, and you start moving into a place where you're building your new life. That's why I love moving on, because you're not forgetting. I don't want anybody to think that you're forgetting that person. I would never forget my husband. Not the rest of my life, not any time in my life.
I think a big part of that, Lisa, I have to interrupt you, because I know the things that you do to celebrate your husband and your life together, right? So I think a big part of not forget, because a lot of people will feel like I'm forgetting. I'm slowly forgetting his voice, or him being in the room. But I think a big part of it is because of what you do. And a lot of what you do is the celebrating part.
Yes. Yes.
Remembering the days you watch the movies, the days that you go up to the dude ranch or wherever it may be. You do many different things to remember those moments in your life. And I think by knowing that you can incorporate all of that, all of these things that Lisa does, that you're not going to forget.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Yeah.
not going to just forget. It was a big part of you and who
That's right.
you are. And you need to hold on to that somehow. And you've done it pretty well. If I can say so myself, right? You've done so
Well,
many of
you
the
know, you've
important-
gone through a lot of deaths, and I've gone through a lot of deaths. And each time, I think it becomes a challenge as to now what's going to happen in your life. Let me give an example of my father. My father died of suddenly on a vacation. He was 57. I was 30 years old. Okay, and I got the phone call in the middle of the night. I mean, it absolutely changed my whole life. I'm an only child, very, very close to him. He was my only biological parent since I lost my other biological parent when I was 2. So this death, I was working at the time for a mental health center. And I told them, I gave them 6 months notice. I said to them, I'm going to resign. I will train the next person, but I've decided that life is short, which I always knew, but life is short. And I'm going to start my own business. And it's a mental health service. And I think they all thought that I was exaggerating because they weren't finding anybody yet. And they only found 3 people to replace me. So obviously I was doing a little much, but I started my own business as a result. That was a huge change in my life. And I also told my husband, because we didn't have children at the time, I would really like a child. And my daughter came whatever months after that. So huge changes in your life because you realize that not only life is short, but that you want to reaffirm life. That's what I wanted to do as a result. And so, you look at each situation, people react differently and all because of the different circumstances. My father, by the way, would never have liked to suffer. And this is exactly the way he would want to go. All of us suffered because we didn't get to say goodbye to him. And of course, 57, I mean, it really was very difficult for his friends. Just like my husband being 56, that was very difficult for our friends. It
Right.
showed them that you could die and you could get any disease at any time. That's a wake-up call to everybody.
It sure is, yeah.
So the changes in our lives can happen at any point, and people just need to be open to embracing those. I remember after my father died, it was only 3 weeks or something until Father's Day. And I said to my mother, what were we supposed to do on Father's Day? Because my father always bought tickets in advance. He always did stuff, he was ready. And he had tickets for these Special Olympics games that were being held at Hofstra. And I said, we're going. And my mother said, well, he's not here or whatever. I said, but that's why we're going, because he wanted to go. So we're going. And, that kind of thing, again, you embrace the fact that, all right, he's not here, but this is something that he would have wanted to do. So, it's like for me going to Alaska. Yeah, it would have been great for him to be there, but he wasn't there. So I went,
Right.
And again, that's all about
And all
grief.
of these things, these are the reasons why you can smile and why you can be healthy and why you can talk about these things and why we do these videos today. Because all of these little things that you've done along the way are positive, celebrating ways to honor somebody's life.
Yes, yes. And let's talk about the other things we do, because you and I do many other things. So Susan, tell everybody about some of the other things you do in your spare time.
Oh, in my spare time. Well,
Yes.
So we've both written a couple books that you can find on Amazon under Susan Capurso. You can just search. One is Coming Full Circle, and that's 100 tools, tips, and ideas to bring into you and your family's life during that last chapter. They're all of the things that we talk about in a lot of our videos. So they're very helpful points and reminders of things to take care of before you go. Not just paperwork and financial things, but the important things like the conversations and the gifting and things like that. And the other one, Remember Me, the Story of My Life, is, really just a book for anybody, healthy or not healthy, towards the end of their life. It brings you back to a moment in time, and the rest of the paper is just lines, and you can fill in your information to leave for generations to come that you may not get a chance to meet. We won't all know our grandchildren or great grandchildren one day. I mean, it's possible, right? That good old 100 years old. We all have 100 years to live. So we need to button some of these things up ahead of time. We also have East End Academy. You see above me there is a place where I host some online digital courses that will help you through the process as well. One, I offer a certification to become an end of life navigator for somebody else in your life. And
We
besides,
also did a course. We have a course on there. What does a dying person want? That's
what does
on
the
there as well.
dying person want? And that's really important because it gives you some real good insight as to how you can be a really helpful in their process
Yes,
at the end of life.
yes.
Right. And we also both offer consulting, coaching and consulting regarding end of life before, during, and after. So our phone numbers are right on top. Take note of that and give a call and we'll have a conversation.
We will.
Right.
Okay, great to see you again, Susan.
Thanks
care.
for that great information. I'm so sorry I missed the meeting, but I will be there next time.
Okay, it's once a year, so,
Ah!
but it's a great group and it does meet. Hopefully it starts meeting